Thanks for showing.
Thanks for having me.
That's
I've
awesome.
wanted to show at this gallery for a long time.
I know you made reference when we were talking a while back about having seen some early painting shows here. That
Yeah, back when the gallery was when it was in Belltown. Yeah, some people that when I was coming of age influenced me. So yeah, this has been a place of start for me. So
we're really happy to have you. So tell us about a little bit about this body of work. I know, so your work kind of has always dealt with graphics. This is, from what I've seen, a particularly colorful, vibrant body of work.
yeah, I kind of always been influenced by the things that I started with in art, which were collecting flyers of bands that I liked and using that material over and over again in different ways. And so, and then this show in particular has this other element that I decided to embrace, which is that I love past historical movements like Bauhaus and De Still. And so I grabbed certain graphic qualities that I was noticing out of the things that I was looking at and decided to play with them. It's a little like in music where you sample. So I'm sampling things and blending it with the things that I like to do. And the piece that you're focused on here is kind of my loosest stuff, which is kind of my favorite thing to kind of do as a painter. And it's pretty basic why that would be, is that you get to actually move around and make the marks and it's not so tight. And so when this one was made, and then the one that'll be further down with the 3 black dots on it, they were the most enjoyable for me to just kind of get going on, to loosen up and make. And they happened really quickly. There's a lot of failed paintings below them, but in the end, when I figured out what it was I wanted, they came together.
Can you elaborate on that? Because that's something I hear you talk about a lot, with like these kind of layers of paintings and working back into a surface and reworking it.
Yeah, I discovered a long time ago when I first got into making artwork that I wasn't really very good at it, and I don't still think I'm very good at it. And that's okay. That's okay. That's kind of a bonus in that you can use the failings to kind of build a surface up. So these have kind of this history, and that's the thing that I also was turned on to by artworks that I was experiencing. One of the shows that you first showed at the gallery in Belltown that I experienced was George Chicona. And again, there's an artist that had a lot of surface on the pieces, a lot of history, a lot of sense of history, obviously, because it was the pieces he did the catacombs. But and then Mike Moran, all these people that white and tennis, they build these surfaces up and they make these rich paintings or sculptures, and I was always lit by that. I'm always attracted to surface and skin, and so that's where I thought, well, I don't do it very well the first time, you know. So let's just build that surface up, work with the failings, and get it to where it finally does come together.
Yeah, can we? I mean, I think you can kind of see it in some of these other paintings as well. And you can really kind of look through these layers.
Yeah, that's the beauty of gel medium, is that it's transparent. So
yeah, so that sort of encaustic look that you get is not actually encaustic. It's
no,
gel.
I've done encaustic in the past, but it's very delicate, easy to damage, and I'm kind of rough. You know, I've taken paintings off their stretchers and dragged them behind my car to get the surface to be done more. And so you do that with a wax encaustic, it doesn't really handle it very well. So yeah, I got aware of the wonderful world of gels via golden acrylics, and so yeah, I've just been playing with that for years and mimicking what looks like wax encaustic, but yeah, it's all acrylic.
So are you pulling imagery from, is this sort of imagined imagery? Or are you pulling source imagery?
So everything is source. The flower, the lily on this one and on that are from a book I have that has flowers in it. I collect books of graphics from all these decades and sample them all, open to a page, and I want to use that in my work and give it a spin, see if it can work with these other things that I'm drawn to, whether it's sort of old, in this case, the blue font on the one that's here.
Mhm.
And on the one there is old bicycle font. So what other fonts I got? Start. Well, your father was noticing this one, and this one has Bauhaus. So I've always been a fan of Herbert Baer, which was who was a Bauhaus graphic designer. Designed the Arco logo that's so famous. Those are two X's that have been jammed together. I have the X's here on my arm. But then the negative space that created between the two X's that were stacked. So it was an X that shaped up through here and then shaped here. When they pushed together, I noticed, well, I could just tie the empty space between them and then take the X's away.
Huh.
And then I was looking at what looks like a gate. And I had been working this surface over so many times and trying to nail a graphic on it so many different times. And I'm failing over and over again. And again, that kind of idea that it's not working, but make that work for you came together with this one. In that I'm always looking for the simplest way that I can make a graphic or a finished surface for the painting. This one and the one to the right of it are kind of examples of that, where I get it right early. I don't have to like hammer them for years. Like this one over here. This one's plagued me for 2 years, whereas this one took maybe 3 months to come together. But had I not failed on that one over and over and over and over and over and over again, I couldn't have gotten to this, because you start to see things that are why it's working, that you can then say, okay, if I just do that 2 or 3 more times, I can get it to happen on this surface.
It's interesting. So this particular painting has been a topic of much discussion since it's been here in the gallery this week, and just kind of wondering, so the thing you see immediately is this sort of graphic R,
Yeah.
but then it actually kind of is constantly morphing, and you see other letter forms, other geometries in it as you spend time with the piece.
Well, and Bill said earlier, this is your name put in here, and it could be, the idea that an artist is a self-portrait, but they do self-portraits in that context. Letter forms are my way of doing it. I don't know how to paint myself or draw a face very well, but the letter forms could be kind of that subjective.
Well, I also know that you're a big bike rider in this particular painting.
It has Tour de France posters.
Right.
So I've always loved flyers that are stuck to walls, and especially when I was in Berlin for a while. You walk around the neighborhood that I was in, Friedrichshain, or next door in Kreuzberg, Mitte, you'd notice all these flyers just waxed to walls, and then people come along, peel them off, more would go up and peel off, and this push-pull thing, the Larry Rivers thing, is in real life happening, and I just loved it. I thought often they were better than the exhibitions I was going to watch, going down the city to watch or see. And so I mimic that. I use old graphics that I collect, and I have some Tour de France posters that I use, some old mod stuff. So this is from the Beat, the English Beat. They had a flyer, and I used that. This is some old music sheet stuff that was sent to me by an artist in Australia that I'm friends with, and we trade. I send her paintings. She sends me packets of
Materials, yeah.
that I cannot get my hands on. So there's a lot of stuff from Australia and New Zealand that she sends me, and I sample that all the time. Yeah.
So is your studio full of all kinds of
I'm a little bit
bits and pieces
I
of
have to
things
constantly
that you pull from?
It can be a bit of a mess at times, and I have to like organize it, collect it, and let go of things too. There are certain things that if they've been there too long and haven't done anything, they get moved to the garbage. So there's a lot of failing, or they get made into mail art. Like if somebody's like, send me a letter, like this is perfect because I cannot make this work on a painting, but send it to you as a postcard. So
Do you have formal education?
Yeah, I went to Western Washington University, and I was primarily that I wanted to go out of state. I applied to schools out of state, but I wasn't getting any scholarship offers. So I noticed that at least the time that I was going off to college, that the price of going out of state was very, very expensive. So I decided to go around the state and sneak into classes and see who my favorite teachers were. So I went down to Evergreen, went over to Eastern, Wazoo, University of Washington, almost went there, almost pulled the trigger there because I like Michael Spafford. But then I went to Bellingham and encountered R.L. Jensen, Bob Jensen. And Bob was the closest. At that time, I'd been really absorbing Joseph Beuys's work. And that was taking off. The whole German neo-expressionist movement was going on, and that was turning me on. So I love bass. That's key for Looper. It's all these really magnificently big painters making great works, thick paint. And Bob reminded me of the boys. He would wear the same kind of vest and hat every day in the class. And I snuck into one of his critiques and listened to how he broke down art. It resonated with me. So I made him my point. I'm like, I'm going to use you as my guide through this art path that I'm choosing to be in. And yeah, and we're still friends to this day. So he's a great source, great artist. So yeah, so I went for Western.
There's just talking to you the other night, there's some art historical references just even in the pigments that you use,
Yes.
right? Like
Yeah. So the that's
ink
used
pine.
blue on the dot there, on a bar on that. And then there's the black pigment on some of the bands is Stuart Simple is this artist out of England who's decided to make, in reference to an artist that had purchased the copyright to the blackest black paint. He made his version with the caveat that you can't sell it to this other artist. And I like that position. I like anyone that does an art game. And his black on black, which you see also on the pieces around the corner, the circular, I made the black dot. And I made the black dots on myself. That black is black. So they're real light absorbent and almost it's like in Looney Tunes when they throw that black dot down and then people would drop it. Yeah, I was like, I always wanted that as a kid. That was always like, I want a black dot that I can throw on the ground and then somebody goes down into that hole. And this is about as close as I can get to making that with these things. So, and again, this is like a Bauhaus reference, you know, polka dots. Also kind of a musical note. And then to the way that this painting and the other one that we saw at the beginning they're my versions of poetry. So I've always been a shite kind of poet, but I still can't stop myself from writing. And the only way I can like transform that bad poetry is then just to paint it over and over again. So that becomes painting, not a bad poem. So these are kind of that.
You're also a musician.
Yes. Yeah, I've been in bands and played music for a long time.
Yeah, I get the musical.
And that's kind of how I came into art, was honestly shows that Larry Reed used to do at his gallery down in Pioneer Square. Roscoe Louis in the basement at the U-Men would play, or 10 Minute Morning, or Spoolie Numa. And I would go to these shows, and then in between the sets, we'd go upstairs with the gallery. And that's actually where I saw George Chacon's first show, where I think he had Lee Harvey Oswald paintings up. And yeah, a whole slew of people there. And that's how that gateway got opened up. I started thinking about making artwork during this time. So yeah, so there is musical references. The show's title, in fact, switched on as a stereo reference, as are many of the titles. So I think this one,
the round one up front for sure.
Yeah, and it's also a philosophical. So the thing that I love about Stereo Lab and all the bands that are kind of influenced by is that there is a smartness to them. There's a wisdom. So that's a kind of reference to a philosophical stance of chaos and order, which was perfectly suited for that one because I was working in a circle, which is very difficult to do. Squares are easy to, rectangles are easy to finish out work in, but a circle, you never find your stop point on it. So it was driving me. That one and this one took so long because I could never stop.
One of the things that comes to my mind in driving around Seattle and different parts of Seattle, I see these graffiti artists, and a lot of this work reminds me of some of the graffiti work that you see that's been worked over and over again.
Yeah. I pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
I bicycle a lot in the city, and I photograph that stuff for my own use. So I'll sample, I'll throw it into my computer, then project it up onto a painting. So a lot of the graphics you see are they're drawings that I then project up onto the surfaces of the painting, so I can mimic that and change the scale of it. But yeah, I sample stuff from graphics that I see.
And the scale, is this about as large a scale as you do, or do?
I'm doing some commission works right now that are twice the size of this.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can do bigger works. I thought for this show, I, kind of dial it down, get it organized. I wanted to proportionally make it right to your space. This was kind of important to me. I never really thought about the gallery as scale or as a reference. And I saw my friends, I think Kimberly Trowbridge once made a model of a gallery that she was going to exhibit in. And I was impressed. I'm like, that is organized thinking. I need to kind of get on that. So I got Gilly to give me a map of the gallery. I stuck it to the wall next to where I draw. And I would constantly look at it. I want to make this size, but I also want everything to just rhythmically fit the gallery space.
Definitely feels that way.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, the installation is beautiful.
No, thank you. Yeah, I really I put some mindfulness behind that. So I'm glad that it shows up.
Yeah, it definitely did. I think I told you this when you dropped the work off. You said, you guys decide where it goes. It was like, I laughed because I could tell that you had already decided where it goes and we just had to figure it out. Yeah. Oh, there was a plan here. I see.
There's also this trust. If I get involved with you as a gallery, I want you to have freedom to move it in any way, shape, or form. You're in here all the time. And I've been involved in the past with galleries, and I've seen artists be difficult on that sale. So I'm like, no, you guys have been in this room, and if you've taken me on and we are synced up, this will happen.
One of the things I noticed walking in this room is primarily used in different ways, more for three-dimensional work than it is two-dimensional work. But walking in here with this two-dimensional work in here and having the windows and these trees and your paintings is a wonderful feeling. I mean, it really puts them in a context that is unlike most white boxes. You really have a feeling of living.
Yeah, outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've always, I've been coming into your guys' space for years. I've always loved it. I've always admired the things that you guys put up, and the room, this room, both this and the room you used to have, the 3 rooms you had in Belltown. I kind of always thought of this for 3. Yeah, your sense of space has always been spot on to me. So
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really wonderful work. Maybe you can, this group of 9 is a little bit different. Than
Yeah, I kind of simplified everything. I just wanted to play with the line. So I love graphics and I love letter forms. And then I've gotten into the 3-dimensional thing where it's more about the line. I've always been a fan of Cy Twombly's work, and so, but I don't want to do Cy Twombly's work, and yet I do. And so how can I balance these 2 things that I love, which are graphic, which is hard edge, along with a rhythmic poetry that I always saw in his, Leda and the Swan, and his drawing, writing technique. And so I simplified what I do in that same way to these 9 that you have here. And so they're real simple and they were fun for me. And yeah, so they're complicated, but they're not complicated.
I really, really love the use of that, the 2 different blacks
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, there's
where
a
you
gesso
get
black.
this one that kind of jumps out
Yeah.
in space and
That's
one
the
that
Stuart
kind of
Semple.
recedes. And you get the sense of depth, and I'm not sure how much that comes through on the
Yeah,
camera.
Probably
here, but-
isn't come together on that, but yeah, this is just gesso underneath a gel. And then this is Stuart Semple's Blackest Black. I think he calls it Black 3.0 on that. And then the base of these is that, but with the gel over the top of it. And then the gray is just some house paint. So I go to Lowe's and Home Depot and buy the Misfit toys, the paints that people return.
Mhm.
That's kind of most of my paints, other than the blue that I use from Yves Klein, and then the Stuart Semple Black on Black. I've also got his. I'm ordering his Whitest White. He's got all these like beautiful like palettes that I'm just constantly like, I gotta try that out. So yeah, there's a few decadent paints, but mostly it's secondhand paints from Home Depot. The Island Misfit toys. That's one of my favorite parts of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yes.
When they visit that island. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to be a little bit conscious of timing here. So maybe let's cruise up front and take a look at the round piece that's on the title wall, because that's a really amazing piece. want folks to have a chance to see
Somebody
it.
made a comment the other day on my Instagram that were like, "That would make a good drum head." And I was like, "Oh, they would. You could set that right on the floor."
It's so interesting that circles have such reference for people. Like
Yeah.
people, the rectangle you think would also have reference, but people are willing to just accept that as a normal
Yeah.
painting shape. But a circle almost always has to be something else.
Yeah, a plate, or
Yeah.
in this case, when it said drum head, I was 100% cool with that because I could see this as a drum head,
Yeah.
a bass drum head. So yeah.
I love the texture that you get in here.
Yeah, that was kind of a mistake, but
I
it
think
worked.
it's wonderful. It
Yeah.
gives it so much,
It's a
feels a little bit alive.
So I
like in
tilted, I usually leave these on flat on the floors to dry. And I got impatient and pulled this one vertical or set it up and then walked out of the room to go get water.
And
or
gravity
something.
does its
And
thing.
gravity did its thing. And I was like, oh. And I dropped it back down to the floor thinking it'll probably slowly go back down, and it didn't.
I like it. It's a wonderful little moment. I think.
That stuff happens all over the place with these things. So, and sanding them, beating them up. Yeah, it's a constant. But yeah, there's the Stuart Simple black is black, and then his yeast Klein blue. So yeah,
They're so flat, those colors. So
they're
cool.
deep flats. Yeah, that whole paint line is really rich, really rich in matte. Like when it's matte, it's the mattest matte I've ever seen. So yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Thanks, Harold.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.